starts on Daf Mem. So we're still in the wide lines, about 15 lines up. It says Haschus. You have it? Haschus yesh lo keren yesh lo peros. When one does a good deed, you have principle and you have fruit. You have the use of fruit. Shenemar. Imru tzaddik tov. You say to tzaddik tov, there's goodness. Avera yesh lo keren, but when one sins, there is principle. Vein lo peros. Shenema oy lo rosh roh. Meaning, one does a mitzvah, he gets extra reward. He gets a bonus. One does an avera, he's only punished for the sin, but he doesn't receive extra punishment. Somar asks, Elabani mekayim yochlim pri darkom umotseim yizbo. It says they will eat the fruits of their ways, and from their plottings they will be sated. So we see that what, even regardless, even in the negative, there is the, in addition to the sin, there's the, in the negative, the bonus for the sin. On that, the Gemara says, Aver sho seperos yesh lo peros. She'en lo seperos, ein lo peros. Let's see, so Rashi explains. A person goes and eats chaylev, eats non-kosher food. Himself. He's not serving as a bad example for others. So what is the sin? Eating non-kosher. A person chooses to steal, what's the wrong? He did stealing. What about if a person is in a position to be a role model, and he does something negative, and other people draw from his behavior? So not only is he doing the wrong thing, but in addition, you have the after effect that other people are going to draw a lesson from him. So there you have the sin, and you have the effect of the sin. That's the peros. Sheino se peros, ein lo peros. Okay? Machshava tov, now this is very interesting. Machshava tov mitzdarfa l'masa. Person has a thought, he wants to do a mitzvah, and the mitzvah doesn't come to fruition. But you want to do the mitzvah. Hashem considers that thought as if you actually actualized the mitzvah, although you did not do the mitzvah. Now, conceptually, what would the reason for that be? You do the mitzvah, we understand you deserve reward. A person chooses to do the mitzvah, and he's not able to bring it to fruition. Not by choice. It's not originally he wanted, then he changed his mind. He truly wanted, he wasn't able to bring it to fruition. What's the reason?
Is this having a positive thought, or is this trying to do something you can't accomplish?
No, originally, it's not you. You weren't realistic. You want to do a mitzvah. A poor man, a person comes to the door and knocks on your door, and by the time you get your money, by the time you go to the door, the poor man disappears. You get full credit as if you gave the tzedakah, although you didn't give the money. Why? Factually, you never gave the tzedakah.
And someone just thinks about doing tzedakah.
No. That's not that.
It's actually doing it.
What? It's not attitude. Again, why is anybody able to do anything? Why were you not able to bring it to fruition? Because God didn't allow it. If it would have been up to me, I would have. So if anything beyond, so what is your investment? What is your participation? To do your best. I did my best. It's more than commit. I did my best. I couldn't do. Why wasn't I able to bring it to fruition? Because God didn't allow it. But if not for Hashem not allowing it, I would have. So I've done everything. Because even when it comes to fruition, why does it come to fruition? Because Hashem allows it. So what is your input always? To what degree? Only up to that point. The allowing is always God doing that. So therefore you get full credit, even though it never came to fruition. Who says you have to? I mean, that's a separate question. That's a separate question. If you designated it. If you already designated as tzedakah, that's a different story. We can see it's in what today's Daf Yomi.
How does that sit with the idea that the one who finishes something is going to get reward?
No. It says, doesn't say he gets reward. It says Nikra al Shmo. The mitzvah is identifies with him. It doesn't say whoever participated didn't get reward. It's Nikra. Right? Mitzvah al Shem Gomra. Whoever completes the mitzvah, it identifies with him. It says by Atzmos Yosef. Right? Rashi brings it. It's Gemara. Who took the remains of Yosef out of Egypt? Moshe. But yet it says, because Moshe never buried in Eretz Yisrael, it's attributed to Klal Yisrael. So from there we learn, Kolosa Mitzvah, you should complete it because it always identifies with the one who completes the mitzvah. It's separate. Doesn't mean to say Moshe doesn't get credit. Of course Moshe has credit. Okay? How do we know that? Machshav tov mitzdarfa l'maseh, chenemar, oz nidberu, it's posuk malachi, oz nidberu yirei Hashem, ishareyu. Those who fear God, they spoke to one another. V'yakshiv Hashem, and Hashem was attentive. V'yishma, v'yikosev sefer zikaron lefonav yirei Hashem, and there was a book of remembrance written before him. For liyirei Hashem u'lechoshvei shmo. What's lechoshvei shmo? My lechoshvei shmo. What does it mean? Those who considered his name. Omer Avasi afilu choshev v'odam lasos mitzvah. Person had in mind to do a mitzvah. V'nenas. And something beyond his ability did not allow him to actualize it. V'lo and he didn't do the mitzvah. Ma'alav hakosev ki lo osav. The Torah values it as if he actually did the mitzvah. That's what we interpret the l'choshei shmo. That even for the machshava, even for the thought, wanting to do it, but again, it's only when it's nenas. It's not a person, I think I'll give charity. And then afterwards, the person, passes his mind, he forgets about it, doesn't give it. Of course, he doesn't get credit. It's when you wanted to do something, a person wants to sit down to learn at night, something comes up, and he has an obligation that he must interrupt, he must attend to whatever that may be. He gets full credit for the amount of time that he would have learned, if not for that level of interruption, where it's a justified interruption. Right? The Rambam rules, it's based on the Gemara in Moed Katan, that normally we say, Osig mitzvah potem b'da mitzvah. Correct? If you engage in one mitzvah, you're exempt from another mitzvah. What about regarding Talmud Torah? Even though we see the Gemara, Talmud Torah keneged kulam, Torah, if the mitzvah which arises can be delegated to another party, then you have no right to interrupt your Torah study. But if it cannot, then you're obligated to interrupt your Torah study. If it's then one doesn't interrupt his Torah study. But if it's it cannot be delegated, you must attend to it, then you're obligated to interrupt your Torah study. So a person wants to sit, study for a few hours, poor person comes, and no one else is able to attend to his needs. And and the obligation is to help the man financially. So you have to spend the whole night, interrupt your Torah study, to take him around, to help him out, to raise money. You get full credit as if you learned that night. The hours that you would have learned, if not for the interruption, you get full credit. That's nenas. He had no choice. It's kilu also. It's interesting. The Chofetz Chaim writes many times. He says that even the person who studies Torah, if you're able to support others studying Torah, you should support others. Why? What's the reason? What would you say, Avrami? No. Even if you're studying yourself and you're a great Talmud Chacham, you should. If you have the means to help support others, you should. See, he says the reason is, he says a person cannot know everything. People study multiple different subject matters. So he says, so when you study what you're studying, after 120 years, all the Torah you studied in this world, you'll know that Torah in the world to come. And you'll know it eternally, that Torah. Of course, at a much deeper level, because we have limitation in this world. What about the Torah you didn't study? That Torah will not be part of your accomplishment. You didn't study it. What about if you were a Ma'asek Torah and you supported others who studied other Masechtas or other subject matters of Torah, which you didn't study? What does it mean you get credit for supporting? After 120 years, you come to Yeshiv Shamala, all that Torah that came into being because of your support, you will know that Torah. So therefore, you'll be fully proficient in all the areas that you supported, although you never studied them. That's what the Chofetz Chaim writes. That you don't need Zachar Zvulun. No. That,
he says Zvulun had Olam Haba, he has all of the Zechut for learning the Torah.
Well, he's saying it's much more than the schut. It's more than the schut. It's more than the merit.
There's a knowledge.
He has the knowledge.
He has a full partnership
Right.
interest in that.
Yeah, right, correct. He has the full knowledge.
But they had to set up the relationship first.
Even if they wouldn't have set it up. Well, if they wouldn't have set up, he wouldn't have been committed to that degree. He wouldn't have been committed to that degree.
Unless you get so much they don't know you're giving, you still get the schools and everything else.
No, definitely. He's a
But you
mavzik.
have to make a
You're still
partnership.
mavzik. You're still. It's better to make the partnership because they're the person actually. It's like you're paying a wage. You're bound to pay the wage to you're responsible for that person's support. But even if one doesn't, right? Doesn't have a person gives money to a yeshiva. There's no contract. He chose to give money. So as a result of your contribution, especially if it makes a difference, it makes a difference. There's a famous story with Rav Chaim Volozhiner. Chaim Volozhiner was the primary student of the Vilna Gaon. So, and like every institution has a fundraiser. So if the fundraiser, of course, he has to be articulate, he has to be capable in his area, but also he has to be very presentable. So the fundraiser Volozhin, he had a coach driver. He wore a very quality suit of clothing. He had a vest. He wore a gold watch. He wore one of these up hats, and quality shoes. And he goes to Vilna. And he visits one of the very wealthy Jews of Vilna who values Torah. And he walks into his home, and this wealthy man looks him up and down, and he thinks to himself, he says, I wouldn't question Chaim Volozhin to himself. He's thinking. Chaim Volozhin feels that, that it's worthwhile. He should take from the proceeds of the yeshiva to pay the expenses for his attire and everything else, that it should be of this quality. He's not questioning it. But he says, it really bothered him. Is my money going to the horse, to the driver, coach, at his shoes, his gold watch? Is that what I'm working for? It bothered him. And the question gnawed on him. So finally reached a point he couldn't deal with it. He traveled to Volozhin. And he goes to speak to Chaim Volozhin. And he presents his case. He says, Chas v'shalom, I'm not questioning the Rebbe. But what is it all about? It bothers me. Am I giving money for the horse and for the watch and for the coach? So Chaim Volozhin says to him like this. He says, if you have a schus, your money goes to the Torah that's studied in yeshiva. If you have no schus, it's in the rump of the horse. That's what he said. It's a famous story with the Chavetz Chaim. No, he meant it in reality. There's a question, do you take money from people who violate the Shabbos Jews to support Torah? So there's a question if the Chavetz Chaim did or not. It's cited from some of his Talmudim. One person said he never did. Somebody who learned in Radin, who had a yeshiva in England before World War II. Between World War I, it was called Schneider's Yeshiva. So somebody once said the Chavetz Chaim took money from a person who was Machal Shabbos. He says, Chas v'shalom. Chavetz Chaim never took money from Machal Shabbos to support Torah. But others said he did. So somebody says, how do you take money from a person's Machal Shabbos? The money that was earned on Shabbos, that's the money that's to support Torah. So the Chavetz Chaim says, the dollar that was earned on Shabbos will not have the schus to support Torah. It's the proceeds that he earned during the week. The other day is not the Shabbos. That's what the Chavetz Chaim said. Right? That dollar will not in any way contribute to the study of Torah. Right? If the person his only day was Shabbos, he'll get something else. But that's what the Chavetz Chaim said.
Work that's done on Shabbos, anything between Shabbos is Shirei Hama. Don't we say something like that?
No. It's not the money. It's not.
Like
That's if you cook, the food item that was prepared.
I'm not allowed to eat it on Shabbos.
Right.
But I don't.
You're not permitted to
eat it on Sunday.
No. You have to discard it.
It's
You're not even permitted to give to a non-Jew.
Right.
Rabbinically. It's rabbinic law. It's rabbinic. Rabbinic. This is all rabbinic.
But Midorah says one could.
Good. Right.
But the Chazal said there's no bracha.
No, there's no bracha will come from violating the Shabbos. Definitely not.
No bracha.
Right? It says Birchas Hashem Hitashir. The blessing of God brings wealth. Many stories. Okay. So we have Machshava Tova, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Mitztarf L'Maseh. Machshava tov mitzarfa l'masa. It's based on this pasuk. Machshava ra. What about an evil thought? A person wants to transgress, to do a sin. Hold up a bank. He has the car. He has everything. The weapon. Drives up to the bank. He sees Obama's there with a security contingent. He's not going into the bank. If the president's robbing the bank, he can't rob the bank. Okay? Okay? So that person, although he intended to rob the bank, Machshav Rav Eina Kodesh Baruch Hu L'Masa. Shenemar. Oven Imreisi Belibi. The evil or the sin which I saw in my heart, Lo Yishma Hashem. Hashem will not listen to that, will not pay attention to that. Okay? So Machshav Ra Eina Kodesh Baruch Hu Mitzarfa L'Masa. Well, we'll see. The Gemara is going to talk about it. El Amani Mekayim Hini Mevi Elohim Azeh Ra Pri Machshvosam. It says, I will bring upon the people evil, the fruit of their thoughts. Machshava Shosapri, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Mitzarfa L'Masa. Machshava She'ein Bo Pri, Ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu Mitzarfa L'Masa. It says something very interesting now. It says it's a new level of understanding. A person has a thought to sin, never comes to fruition. No, he's not culpable. There's no claim against him. What about he originally plans the sin, and it comes to fruition? When he's punished, is it only for the sin, or it's even the thought to prepare for the sin? Then the Machshava, Hashem says, now you'll be punished not only for the sin, but even planning, and whatever enabled you to bring it to fruition. So that's Machshava. That's what he means. If the Machshava is osipri, if the thought process brought to a result, then the person's liable even for the thought. But if it never came to fruition, then there's no liability. Because Ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu Mitzarif, Machshava L'Masa, Ra L'Masa. Now, there's a famous Rabbeinu Bachya, David. Rabbeinu Bachya writes, right at the beginning in the Vayikra, he writes that when a person brings a korban for atonement, there are three things. There's vidui, verbal expression, right? That's confession. Then there's smicha, you lean on the korban, then you burn. You burn its innards. The innards are burned, right? He says, why? What is the... So, vidu, we understand. You have to confess. Person sins, you need confession. What's the leaning and what's the burning of the innards? So he says, Rabbeinu Bachya, he says, before a person sins, it's inevitable. There's some level of verbalization, even if it's something you don't share with anybody else. Sometimes a person talks to himself. There's some kind of verbal expression, even if you not speaking to anyone. And then there's what? There's also the planning. There's the plotting. That's the thought. And then there's the actualizing. Then there's the doing. So he says the vidui corresponds to the speech. The leaning on the korban, that corresponds to the what? To the actual sin itself. That's the action. What is the burning of the kloyos? So the Gemara says, based on psukim, that what are the kidneys? Kidneys have some relevance to one's intellect. That's the plotting. That's plotting the sin. So therefore, burning the innards is the plotting, the vidui is for the speaking, and the leaning is for the actualization of the sin.
Does he discuss why in that order?
Well, the vidui is understood has to be prior. Yeah. Right.
But the thought comes last to burning.
Well, you can't lean on the animal after it's been killed, right? Because you have to burn its dead. It's just not possible. Okay. So he's saying, so when a person sins, not only is there to be liability for the sin, it's even for the thought that brought to the sin. No question. You'll even get more. You'll get even more thought, more credit. Somewhere says, "Tofos is basis belibam." They're being held accountable for what's in their heart. This is an exception. Person had a mind to do idolatry, a Jew, and he was never able to actualize his plan, his thought. Why is the Torah more stringent regarding idolatry than anything else, even though factually he never brought it to fruition? Right? A person who, let's say, denies, rejects idolatry with a vehemence, committed, you reject it, Hashem says, I value like you fulfilled the whole Torah. Fulfilled the whole Torah. It's saying it in the positive. So if God forbid it was in the negative, you acknowledged it, it's like you rejected the whole Torah. You're denying God. So because it's all-encompassing in the negative, therefore for thought alone, that's sufficient reason to be held culpable. The person truly, he was going to go to St. Patrick's. And on the way to St. Patrick's, there was the street caved in. The cab went into wasn't able to make it. Okay? He's held the culpable as if he went there.
According to the logic that the Gemara gives here, we should see the same thing with Shabbos.
Wait. So if you take a look in the Orach Chaim HaKodesh, in Shabbos, it says, Lasus is a Shabbos. Right? It says, Lasus is a Shabbos. So yes. I mean, observing Shabbos is, you don't do the Shabbos, you refrain. How do you observe Shabbos? By not violating the Lam Tes Malachos. So it says, since it says, if you violate Shabbos, it's as if you violated the whole Torah its entirety. So observing it, it's like you kept it. That's the action. That's what he says. That's what it says. Lasus is a Shabbos. It's as if Hashem values it as if you did the Shabbos. Because we said earlier, if a person refrains from doing an avera, right? You refrain from doing an avera, Hashem considers it as if you did the mitzvah, even though before it says it's only bo avera liyodo. Right? But Shabbos you don't need it.
And if you plan to violate Shabbos, would you be culpable? Like with the
No. It's not. Still, it's a different level. It's a different level.
Why did that happen? Hashem wanted it to happen. So he wanted to take you.
There's no question. In terms of culpa, if a person does avodah zarah, it's punishable by death. Person, even that, it doesn't have the same degree. It says you will be held accountable, but it's not the same. It doesn't have the same severity. I mean, let's understand. To be so serious. I mean, just to give you, normally we rule that tochidei dibur. Anything that within a certain minimal time frame, you could add or retract, right? If you enter into a transaction and you wanted to add a clause and you added it immediately. Initially, when you began the transaction, you didn't add that clause or that prerequisite, and then you said it's contingent. Although you didn't say it initially, but since you're still in the midst of the transaction, you could add it. What about if you let that time frame pass? Very small time frame, it's too late. The deal is concluded, you can't add it. Verbal. Or even a contract. Give you a contract, and I take it back immediately. Contract is null and void. I took it back. You have a right to take it back. What about a man takes a ring, puts it on the woman's finger, Harebu Kadeshesli. And the second he says, Lee pulls the ring off the finger and was done presence of witnesses, she's married. What about a man gives his wife a get? Right? And he says, Harebu Gareshes takes the get with all it's written properly, puts in his wife's hand, she's divorced. But if he takes it back immediately, it's irrelevant. What about if a person goes to an idol and says, Ato Eli, you're my God. And then he says, I was only joking. Right? You're nothing. Immediately, he's considered an idolater. And he's culpable. He has all the liabilities of idolatry. We don't say Tochya de Dibur. The question is why. So the Ran explains, in other Rishonim, what is the concept of Tochya de Dibur? That a person hasn't finalized his thought unless that period of time has passed. Before a person does idolatry, because it's something so serious, a person will not make that statement unless he thought it over 1,000 times. As a result of that, when you said it, at that moment, it's already after the fact. Same thing, marriage is not just that you don't take marriage lightly. Harei Mukadeshesli, you only say that, make that kind of commitment and do that act only if you've concluded without question this is the person you want to marry. Therefore, there's no relevance to Tochadei Dibur. Same thing with severing, terminating a relationship such as divorce. Right? So therefore, could machshava roh korshvot mitzvah lamasa, to already come to a point. It's not you're thinking about doing idolatry. You've already concluded you're going to do the idolatrous act, and you're on your way. It never came to fruition. Therefore, as a result of that, that's the reason why it's valued so seriously. Okay?